Hello friends, it is Stasia and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be going over my September wrap-up. I will say that this is, I believe, my best reading month so far, so that's very exciting. I've also read a lot of good books that I really enjoyed. So we're gonna get into that, but before we get into the books that I read, we're gonna go ahead and go through the books that I accumulated. Did not buy any books this month. I do need to buy a couple for book club in the near future, but I didn't buy any for myself this month. So we're gonna go ahead and see what I got from publishers, friends, things like that. So the first book I got was actually The Fury by Alex Michaelides, I believe is how you say it. And this is an arc, which I was so surprised to get because I really enjoyed his other books, The Silent Patient and The Maidens. This comes out in January on the 16th, I believe. So I'll definitely be reading this beforehand, maybe do a vlog, since I think I have vlogs of the other two, or like they're featured in a vlog somewhere, but I'm not sure. But I love this author, and this is probably going to be one of my most anticipated releases, so I feel like it might be fun to do a vlog on this. So this is the first book I got. Then a friend of mine sent me Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. This is a Heartstopper novella. I think there's only one of the Heartstopper graphic novels that I've not read yet, so I do need to jump on that, but I am excited for this. Then I was also sent The Summer of Broken Rules. I'm not entirely sure what this is about, not entirely sure what people are saying, but I believe that there has been good reviews. I've been seeing this all over Bookstagram, so I added it on my wish list. The last book I received was The Hookup by Marnie Mann. All I know is billionaire, boss, employee, second chance romance. So very fun things. I've not read anything from the author before, but I am still excited for this one. That is that. Now we'll go into some quick stats in September. So like I said, it was my best reading month. I ended up reading a total of 15 books, and that came out to 5,196 pages. I don't know how it happened. I don't know what happened in September, but I'm very happy for it. For my formats, I read 3 physical, 8 ebooks, and then 4 were audio, or like audio mix somehow. And then my genres were 13 romance, 1 fantasy, and 1 thriller. I think I only had 2 vlogs, so we might have a lot of chatting. Alright, so the first book that I read was Body Check by Tegan Hunter. So Hutch and Auden by chance meet at an airport bar, and then when they realize that on the plane they're also sitting next to each other, they both have a like fear of flying, but Hutch kind of helps Auden through that. They make an unexpected landing because of a storm, and they end up staying at the same hotel and agree on a one-night stand. So they're like, all right, great, I had a fun time, no complaints, go our separate ways, all is well. But when Hutch goes back to like his career as a hockey player, Auden realizes that she actually has a contract with the hockey team that he plays for. So it gets messy because there shouldn't be like that fraternization, but they can't seem to stay away from each other. So it just becomes a whole thing. And yeah, so it's a one-night stand turned forced proximity, and it's just overall a very fun time. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I really loved Hutch and Auden. Like, they were trying their best to do the right thing. They definitely didn't want to be those people breaking the rules. Well, Auden more than Hutch didn't want to be that person breaking the rules. Like, they thought they had their life planned. Auden had her career. Hutch was trying to become captain of his hockey team. Like, they all had these things in their life and never thought that this little one-night stand was kind of going to throw their entire life off track. So it was very fun to see their relationship develop, even though they thought they were being like super secretive. I also loved like Hutch's teammates like picking up on things and kind of dropping hints at him, and he's just like, you guys don't know what you guys are talking about. So their relationship seemed complicated at first because they both kind of swore off love for different reasons. We really got into the nitty-gritty of Auden's situation, which I really loved getting to know her more. I do wish that we got a little bit more of Hutch's background because his seemed like a really big thing, and I feel like they kind of just touched over it a little bit instead of like exploring it a little bit more. But overall, I loved it. I loved their banter. Their spice was so well done. The fact that they tried to stay away from each other, but they just couldn't. It was overall just a really fun time, and I really enjoyed my time with it. It really did have me like laughing and swooning, and I was rooting for them the entire time, and it was just a fun time. So yes, I gave that 4.5 stars. The next book I read was Confessions on the 745. I actually read this for a reading vlog that I will leave above and below, where Rylan chose the book that I read. So not going to give you too much thoughts on this, but I'll tell you guys a little bit about the book. This follows multiple perspectives, but it mainly centers around our main character, Selena. So Selena has some stuff going on in her life. Her husband is not currently working, but supposed to be looking for a job. So he's at home with the kids, but they also have a nanny, and Selena just goes to work every day, does what she needs to do to provide for her family, this, that, and the other, until one day the nanny goes missing. So we kind of follow that and how everything sort of intertwines. In the beginning, all of our perspectives are seemingly like not going to connect as much, but it does all come together in the end. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars. The next book I read was Warstorm. This is the final book in the Red Queen series. It was a very big book. I ended up giving this book 3.75 stars. I can't say too much about it because, like I said, it is a part of a series, but I was reading this to participate in Rylan's like read along in this. I've never read this series before. But overall, the book kept me on my toes. It was a bit long-winded because it's huge. But there was a lot of like action, unpredictability going on. I just overall kind of wanted a bit more, especially from the ending. So that's kind of why my rating ended up where it was. But there was multiple perspectives in here, and I really enjoyed all of the different perspectives. Just wanted a little bit more, so I was a bit unsatisfied at the end, so that's fine. The next book I read was Home Run Proposal by Maren Moore, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This follows Lane and Hallie. Lane is a baseball player. He is Hallie's best friend's older brother. So Hallie has her V card. She's never so much as kissed a boy or done anything, but this year in college she's like, hey, I really want to experience these things, get all of this stuff off my chest and just do everything. So she accidentally propositions Lane to be the one to take her V card. She originally thought she was talking to Eli, his brother, and her best friend, because she's like, hey, I don't think it'll be super awkward. We've known each other forever, and I just want the V card out of my back pocket. But she didn't realize that when she was talking, she was actually talking to Lane. And since hearing that, Lane couldn't get it out of his mind, so he approaches Hallie, and he's like, hey, we're gonna do this. And obviously she's skeptical because she's like, oh, I didn't mean to give that to you, because she does have like a little crush on him, but he's not the type to like settle down. So she's very hesitant when he's like, yeah, I'll totally do this with you. But eventually she gives in, and they do that with Lane taking her V card and teaching her all of these fun things. But like I said, I gave this book 4.5 stars. It was honestly so much fun. Hallie is a bit quirky. Like, she has different hobbies. Like, her and her best friend host a like podcast where they talk about like conspiracy theories and all of this fun stuff. So she's not like a super popular girl, but she's not like super weird either. She just kind of does her own thing, which is super fine. And Lane is obviously like the star baseball player who is kind of having an identity crisis. He's graduating this year. He's not sure what he's doing or if he's on the right path for himself. So it's very, very fun seeing them like figure each other and both themselves out. Hallie like growing into herself, being comfortable to ask for what she wants and kind of go after all that stuff, and Lane figuring out who he was, and separating that from like the expectations from other people. I really loved their character development. I just loved seeing them together, seeing how patient Lane was with Hallie and helping her learn and not rushing into things, pushing her. Like, even though she thought she was ready to take the next step, Lane took it really slow because he wanted to make sure that she was comfortable, she knew what she was doing. And I really loved seeing their connection grow and seeing how the feelings for each other were there longer than either of them expected. It was just honestly a very sweet story. The tension was so good, the side characters were so funny. It also did opened the conversation for book 2, which is following Hallie's other best friend, Viv, and one of Lane's like baseball friends, Reese, which is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait for them, like the little sneak peeks that they already had. There was a third act breakup, which wasn't super annoying because of the resolution. The resolution came really quick and it wasn't dragged out, and it made sense for the characters on like who they were as people, on why that like third act conflict came about anyways. So I understood where the author was taking it and I wasn't too mad about that. So love the connection, love the easiness with each other, the patience, the growth. It was a fun time. So yes, gave that 4.5 stars. The next book I read was Trick Play by Veronica Eden. This was just a little novella that comes before the first book that I've already read, Iced Out. It's her series. But yeah, so this was a quick little novella. I gave this book 5 stars. It was honestly so fun, and even though it was a novella, I feel like it gave me everything I needed. So in this novella, we follow Alex and Lainey. Lainey kind of keeps to herself. She's labeled as like a nerd. She works at a bookstore. She just focuses on school, that sort of thing. And her twin brother is a hockey player. One day, she's in the hallway and someone's kind of giving her a little bit of trouble, and she's just trying to like go about her day. And when Alex, who is on the hockey team with her brother, overhears this, he pretends that Lainey is his girlfriend to get these other guys to kind of like back up and like stop getting on her case so much. They go around and kind of say like, hey, we're gonna do this fake dating situation that will be mutually like beneficial, because it'll get other people off of Lainey's back and Alex can do whatever. I don't actually remember why he needed a fake girlfriend. But they were very, very different. Alex is very outgoing and Lainey is very to herself. So it was very interesting to see that kind of dynamic try to work. But it worked really well. I loved seeing how Alex cared for Lainey, because his personality was almost different around Lainey. Obviously he's like this big shot hockey player, so he's so focused on the game, but with Lainey he's just so kind and so patient and so tender with her that I really loved it. He was always aware of where she was and how she was feeling, whether or not she was uncomfortable, and I just loved that like attention to detail that Alex had towards Lainey. But yeah, so very fun little novella that I really enjoyed. Like I said, I gave that one 5 stars. The next book I read was Off the Grid by Kay Bromberg, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This follows Spencer and Camilla. They kind of get off on the wrong foot, but they quickly realize that they are forced to work together because Spencer is trying to make it in the F1 sport. He's currently in like F2, I believe that's what it's called, I don't know. But so he's trying to make his debut in the F1 sport of racing, and Camilla, her family owns Moretti Motorsports, which is like an F1 team, and he ends up being a replacement for a little bit, but there is like an instant sort of connection that they already have with each other because they met before this actual trade or whatever happened. So yeah, so I gave this book 4.5 stars. Both of these characters really had a lot to unpack. They both had very hard pasts and very like big mental blocks that they needed to get through, and I really loved seeing them work through that. Obviously there's a lot of like push-pull in the beginning because it is more of a like will they won't they situation when it first starts, because since they didn't get off on the right foot, Camilla like doesn't really like Spencer, but she can't deny the attraction she feels towards him. That really surprised her. So yeah, I really enjoyed their overall connection and how much Spencer was able to have her open up and have her see that she is valid and can trust him and things like that. But all of the internalized feelings obviously like came out in the end, so it was a very great time seeing them just kind of find comfort in one another, and then seeing Spencer kind of explore this new career path and whether or not it'll stick with him. But overall it was a fun time. I gave it 4.5 stars. Yeah, so not many complaints. The next book I read was Rewrite Our Story by Kat Singleton. This is the first book in the Sutton Mountain series, and I also gave this book 4.5 stars. We have a lot of 4.5 this month. I'm trying to be not like pickier, but like not give out 5 stars as much. So if it's nothing like super like 5 stars, it needs to have it. I try not to give it, but I'm very easy to please. So we have a lot of 4.5 this month. But this follows Cade and Mare. This is a second chance romance. So Cade and Mare kind of grew up together because Mare's best friend is Cade's sister. So they grew up together, and Cade kind of helped her with a very big like life event that happened. So they grew very close, but no one really knew like how close they actually were. Then for college, Mare moves away to the big city, and that kind of causes like a whole giant breakup between them, but no one, like I said, no one knows. Something happens, and Mare is now back in the small town of Sutton. Cade is very mad still. He is upset that Mare left and all of that stuff, and Mare is still hurt about the entire situation that led to all of that in the past. So they're trying to figure out whether or not there is still a connection, and they do still care about each other, but they don't know if they can trust each other and if they do want to give this another shot or anything like that. So we kind of just follow them in trying to figure out what they want, whether or not that is each other or, you know, just as friends. But their journey was honestly, like, it was great. So like I said, I gave this book 4.5 stars. Their growth and learning how to love each other again was so great, because when they had last seen each other, they were so much younger. She was fresh out of high school, he was like a freshman in college, or like around that age of like 18, 19. So like coming back many years later, I think it's like, I want to say it's like 5, 8 years later, I don't know, but it's like many years later, and learning that the other person that you thought you knew everything about has grown a little bit, and they have new tells and they have new things that they like, and all of this like new stuff that you weren't a part of. Seeing them like unpack that with each other was honestly such a fun time. I loved seeing Cade realize like, hey, I can take responsibility for my part of what happened. I can take responsibility for the things I've said, but at the end of the day, like, do I want to give this another shot? Because I never really found anyone like Mare. And Mare being like, you really like kind of hurt me, and I don't know if I could trust you, but I'm willing to try again. It was overall just such a fun time. I loved seeing them together and see that they were meant to be together. Even after all these years, they still had the connection that was just undeniable, and it was just so enjoyable. And yeah, so I gave that 4.5 stars. And then the next book I read was Tempting the Player by Rebecca Genshak. This is a bodyguard romance. This follows Jane and Hendrix. I gave this book 4 stars. So Jane was a like childhood star. A few years ago, she kind of decided that she wanted to give her a shot at a normal life. So she's just been at college, you know, just having friends. No one really knew about her younger self, like her younger personality, until a few months ago. She kind of like, for Halloween, she dressed up as who her childhood star was, and then that rumor went around, and then now paparazzi were back kind of in her life and seeing what was going on there. But she has been getting some like weird messages, almost like threats, but she's not really sure what to do about them. So her parents secretly hire a bodyguard named Hendrik, and he's just supposed to be there. But Jane accidentally falls for him without knowing who he is, and then the entire thing blows up, and yeah, so that goes there. So I gave this book 4 stars. I loved the banter between the two, because Jane is such a big personality and Hendrix is very broody. He definitely has like a chip on his shoulder from like his childhood and how he grew up and all of this stuff, because he was previously in the NFL but got injured. So he kind of is just taking a break, and he's back in this small town to be Jane's secret bodyguard, as well as kind of reconnect with his brothers that are still in this town that they live in the same town. But overall, it was a lot of fun. I loved seeing Jane like try to get the fun side out of Hendrix, and him being so serious. Eventually, obviously, she does find out, and it does cause like a giant thing. But in the end, like, it definitely all works out. So seeing like Hendrik be like, hey, like, I want to open up to you about my past and like why I am the way I am, like, it was just an overall like a very sweet story. I loved seeing Jane with her friends again, because this is the 4th book in a series, the Campus Wallflower series, and I've read the first 3, so I love seeing those couples again and have them like trickle in and out of the book. Hendrix also has a lot of brothers. I think there's 4 of them, 3 brothers, but one is like a best friend, but he like lives with them and he's been there forever, so he's basically a brother. And I would love their stories. Like, the way that there was just that like brotherly banter was so fun, and Hendrik was always like the serious older brother, but when he comes back, he realizes like his brothers are not as young as they used to be. Like, they can give it as much as they take it, and it was just a fun time seeing all of these different dynamics work together and all of these relationships form, because obviously Jane starts to create a relationship and friendships with Hendrik's brothers, and it was just a fun time overall. So I gave this book 4 stars. The next book I read was Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner. Not sure if that's how you say it, but I listened to this only on audio. So I gave this book 4 stars. I did enjoy it. This follows Grace and Phoebe. Grace has been on the national soccer team for like a decade, so she knows the ins and outs of everything, whereas Phoebe is kind of just coming in. She just got recruited from a very small town, so no one really knows much about her. Grace gets injured and Phoebe is like kind of called in and practicing to not take her place but play her position while Grace is recovering. So there is like this sort of like tension between them, because Grace is kind of like an old head, like she has been here a while, she know how things goes, and Phoebe still like has that like new player excitement, and like she's never been outside of her small town, so like coming to like this big sort of stage in a sport she loves was just very exciting, which was valid. I really liked it. It was a fun time. Both of our characters were very different personalities. There are hints of possible diagnosis for these characters, but it doesn't go, like, it's not truly talked about until like the end, but seeing like how they were very different and kind of discovering themselves and realizing that there is a name or like other people who kind of relate to these 2 characters was also fun to see like them discover themselves. And even though they were opposites, it was honestly just like super fun. It was a very like Grump Sunshine sort of situation between our 2 characters, but it was very entertaining to see Phoebe try to get Grace out of her comfort zone. And although Grace didn't want to give in because she didn't like believe in mixing like work with play, Phoebe wears her down, and they can't really deny the attraction that they have for each other. So there is a bit of a forbidden secret relationship sort of thing going on. But it was honestly a pretty funny book. Like, seeing the conversations that they have and how they weren't always on the same page was honestly very entertaining. So yeah, definitely was laughing throughout the book. The side characters were also hilarious, but it still had a way having the important conversations without it being like too overbearing or too harsh. They did talk about like the real sensitive and serious conversations that needed to be had, so I also really enjoyed that. The next book I read was Before the Sunset by Laura Pavlov. This is book 4 of Cottonwood Cove, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This follows Reese and Finn. They are childhood besties from birth. They have seriously been each other's best friend, and tells each other everything. They've been through everything together, but they never really crossed that line into more because they always told each other that they never would. So at the beginning of the story, Reese is coming back to Cottonwood Cove after being abroad for about a year for a career opportunity. Before she left, she had a fiance, and that just didn't go as planned because he wasn't super supportive of her decision to go to London and do this whole career thing. While leaving, Reese was kind of just like in limbo with her fiance, but a few days before she is set to come back, she gets wind that her ex-fiance now has a girlfriend. So it just causes this entire thing. Finn is a TV star. Like, his newest show kind of just blew up, so he's getting like signed to do all of these acting things and things like that. But his co-star in the show kind of tarnished his image. So his agent was like, hey, like, you need to show the world that you are like a settled down type and you can have a girlfriend. So Reese and Finn kind of go into this fake dating situation where it's mutually beneficial that Reese will get to make her ex-fiance jealous and Finn can clean up his image. They go into this role very easily because they're already used to always being together. They already know everything about each other. So it was very easy for them to have this like fake dating blow up, because obviously since Finn is in the public eye, they did need to do interviews and like really sell the relationship. So it was very easy for them to fall into that role. And while they were pretending in that role, Finn realized like, hey, you know what? I think this makes sense to me, like being with Reese. But Reese is still trying to figure out whether or not she wants to get back with her ex-fiance or like what's going on down that road. So it is a giant mess of feelings. But like I said, I gave this book 4.5 stars. I loved Reese and I loved Finn. I was hoping the communication would have been a little bit better, considering they've been best friends since they were literal children. And there was like they weren't on the same page a lot of the time, which is fine. Like, I get it. You don't want to like take that risk and have it, you know, become awkward, especially when they've been like your friend for life and you guys already made this pact. Like, you guys aren't gonna cross that line together. So I understand why it happened the way it did. Seeing like Finn finally acknowledged his developing feelings for Reese after his entire family have been on him for years about it. It was just so fun seeing Reese get treated the way that she should and seeing her like get back into small town life and go after her dreams that she never thought she could. I really loved Reese and Finn. It was just so sweet seeing how they really understood each other and they treated each other. And yeah, it was also very funny because, as always with Cottonwood Cove, there is a sibling group chat between all of the Reynolds siblings, so Finn and all of his siblings. But we also got introduced to a new character, which was Reese's sister, who was also super hilarious. So these side characters were really giving this book, and I loved the banter and like the teasing between all of the characters. But yes, overall, very fun time. Love the family dynamic. I always have a good time in Cottonwood Cove, and I'm going to be very sad when it ends with the next book, but yes, so there was that. Then I read Tempt Our Fate by Kat Singleton. This is book 2 in Sun and Mountain. I gave this book 5 stars. I really loved Camden and Pippa. So this follows Camden and Pippa. Camden is a billionaire who kind of just bought this art gallery in the small town of Sun and Mountain. After going there for a wedding, like, he just really enjoyed it and thought that it would be a great place to open a gallery. So that's what he did. And while he was there for his friend's wedding and like scoping out the venue, he ran into Pippa twice. And literally ran into each other. The first time he got beer all over himself, and then the second time there was like cupcakes spilled everywhere. So after both of those situations that happened in book 1, they don't really see eye to eye. Pippa is a bakery owner and she realizes that someone just bought the like property next door. So she goes over there to see, hey, what's going on? Like, welcome to the community, and realizes that it is none other than Camden who has bought it. She immediately is on guard, and like I said, I gave this book 5 stars. I really loved Camden and Pippa. They definitely tried to run away from their feelings. Neither of them really wanted to commit to anything at that time. So there's just like a whole bunch of things going on, but they really couldn't deny how well they fit together. And slowly, obviously, Camden starts to soften for this small town, even though he has always thought himself to be a city boy. But obviously there are conflicts with Pippa not knowing if she fits in his life and all of this fun stuff. So overall, it was a fun time. Camden was a great time. I loved Pippa. She was such a strong heroine. I loved her drive for doing what she wanted to do, considering she owned her own business. She was very like strong-willed in what she wanted to do, and she never let anything get in her way, which I really, really loved. I loved their connection and Camden not being like intimidated by how hardworking Pippa was. Obviously he is a billionaire, like he does have a whole bunch of money, but he wasn't expecting Pippa to be any less than who she was, which I really, really loved. I loved all these small tender moments of them trying, or Camden like seeing the town and realizing it's not just like a small town that's like every other town, and it was just overall a fun time. So I gave that book 5 stars. The next book I read was Spill the Sweet Tea by Lyra Parrish. This is book 2 in the Valentine's Texas series. This follows Kinsley and Hayden. They were together all throughout high school, and then they had a very messy breakup when they had graduated high school. They just wanted different things, so they broke up, and Hayden swore that he was never going to go back to Valentine's, Texas again, but evidently he was wrong, because he did end up back in Valentine's, Texas due to some unfortunate circumstances that couldn't be helped. So he ends up back here, and it kind of takes Kinsley off guard because she was expecting to never see him again. I gave this book 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favorite. I just wish, I think my main thing with this was a second chance romance, because they were together in high school and they had all this history, but reading their story, it didn't feel like they had a lot of history. Like a lot of things were just brushed over. The only reason why we know that they have history was because they would say something like, oh wow, like you're not who you used to be, or like you used to like this, like do you still like it, or like do you remember our first date, like things like that. And I wish we kind of lived through it a little bit more, which is odd. I don't say it as much, but I feel like this book could have benefited from being longer, and kind of giving us a little bit more of that background between our two characters, because I was really missing that past that they had shared. But overall, obviously rumors start to go around that Hayden and Kinsley are, you know, trying to work things out, but it's mainly because Kinsley was kind of forced to talk to Hayden for her job, because she works at a newspaper and his parents own a bookshop that she was doing an article on. So they were kind of forced to keep bumping into each other, and eventually like needed to try to talk things out and try to see if things were worth another shot. So overall, I did enjoy the story. I just missed a lot of the history between the characters and that foundation of would it be worth fighting for again. But like I didn't feel the connection that they had in the past that they were very hung up on. So yeah, gave that 3.5 stars. Next, I read Something Like Hate by Piper Rain. This is a football romance. This is a romance between Miles and Bryce. So Miles and Bryce got off on the wrong foot. They seem to like not like each other. They were featured in a different series together and ran in the same friend groups, but for some reason they just never really got along. So this follows them as they realize like, hey, maybe there's kind of more to this situation than we think. So I gave this book 4.5 stars. I thought Miles and Bryce, like their connection was just so well done. Like you could feel the tension in the air every time they were in the same room together, and they just wanted to ignore it because they didn't think that they wanted the same things. Bryce was kind of looking for like nothing super serious, but Miles was ready to like settle down. They were just always on the opposite side. When Bryce takes a new job and it becomes the main reporter for the Grizzlies, which is the football team that Miles plays for, they're forced to be together a little bit more and kind of try to resist the urge to see if they should go a bit further, because obviously it is very frowned upon for them to be together in the situation of the player and the reporter. But just seeing them like break out of their shell, especially Bryce, she had a lot of walls up, so seeing Miles show her that she can bring her walls down for him was honestly just, it was great. I really, really loved it. And seeing Bryce be honest with herself and why certain events happened, and seeing Miles like understand instead of like reprimand her for it was just, I loved it. It was so fun. It was so good. All of the cameos from previous books were also so much fun. And yeah, just seeing like the dynamic between Bryce and Miles was very interesting because Miles is a more like soft-hearted guy. Like he's not like center of attention or anything like that. And Bryce is very like outspoken. She's gonna tell you how she sees it. And so it was very interesting to see them work side by side because Bryce is very honest and Miles didn't know how to take it. He just feels like she's very hard on him and in like her reports and stuff. So it was interesting seeing them confront all of their issues together and potentially resolving it. Second to the last book, guys. So the second to the last book I read has an entire reading vlog, so I won't tell you too much about my thoughts, but that was Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This was the September book club pick for the Mending Hearts book club. So I have an entire non-spoiler vlog. It is tabbed and annotated. I gave this book 4.5 stars. So this book follows Elsie and Jack. Jack is the older brother of Elsie's fake boyfriend. That's an entire situation in itself, but it's fine. That is Jack's relation to Elsie, and Elsie is a like scientist or something. Oh, she's a theoretical physicist, and she's trying to get out of the professor role and go into the research role. And so she kind of gets picked to go on like this interview at MIT, and while she's there she realizes that Jack is a part of the board of people who will vote on whether or not she will be doing that. So that kind of just causes a whole string of events, and yeah, so that was that. I'm not gonna tell you my thoughts, but I'll leave my vlog above and below if you want to know more. The last book I read in the month of September was The Ice Kiss by Elle Steele. I gave this book 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite book. So this book follows Gio and Rick. So Rick is a hockey player. He just came back from like doing other jobs, but he's now the captain of a hockey team, and Gio is their PR manager. So they enter a marriage of convenience situation, but things are not really as it seems. There's a lot of secrets being had, a lot of things to unpack, and yeah, so I gave this book 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite. It was definitely spicy. There's like a one bed trope situation where they're forced to be roommates and things like that. I really liked the side characters though, I will say that. Like the other hockey players were all very, very entertaining, but Rick and Gio, I didn't fully get it. I've said it before that I'm not super big on bully romances, and I feel like this was bordering bully because Rick treated Gio very weirdly, which makes sense when everything like comes to light on what like has actually happened, because there is a bigger story than what you would think. But I don't know, it didn't make me super happy like to see how everything happened and what the reasoning was. I felt like it was a bit irrational, but like I also get it because there was character development sort of in the end, so I loved to see that. But I felt like before all of that just wasn't really necessary, and especially because they're an adult and should take responsibility for their actions. I didn't really love Rick for Gio, if I'm being honest. Obviously there is like a happily ever after, but I wasn't necessarily rooting for them, which kind of takes away the point of a romance book. So I'm not entirely sure. It was also super long. It was like 400 pages, and I didn't think it needed to be that long. So there was also that. But yeah, overall I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite, but I think it was more of like a just not for me situation. Like obviously there were parts that I enjoyed. There were characters I liked. There were moments that were sweet and stuff, but overall like I couldn't super get behind everything that led up to the happily ever after. But that was that. That is all 15 books that I read in the month of September. Hopefully the momentum keeps going and October can be great as well. But yeah, so that is all from me today. You can like, comment, and subscribe down below if you like. All my socials, follow me anywhere else are in the description. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!